everyone. I figured I would do a bit of an update video just to sort of avoid shoving this into another video where I'm actually talking about a different topic. And so for people who aren't really that interested in what's going on in my life and what my channel plans are and things like that, that you don't have to watch this if you're not interested and stuff like that. And just because there are a couple of things that I want to mention and flag and discuss a little bit here in the channel and maybe ask questions and stuff like that. So yeah, I also just feel like I've resurfaced. I've basically resurfaced from the first semester. The second semester has already started, but my first semester continued all the way through the Christmas break and right up until Monday, because I had an essay. One of my essays wasn't due until after the break, until the first day of the second semester, and also I had a PhD application that I was submitting the Friday before term started back. So my Christmas break was pretty much just me working. I took some days off in the middle for Christmas itself, and that was just spent with family and everything. So I didn't really get the kind of break that I was hoping to over Christmas, that, where I didn't get the chance to sort of reorientate myself and actually think about Heart Story at all and maybe make a video. I had all of these things that I kind of was hoping to get done over the Christmas break, and all of that went completely out the window when I realised that I was going to have this PhD proposal done basically before the second semester started. So it was just the first semester just got busier and busier and busier and culminated in this absolute frenzied mayhem. But I finally surfaced from that, and I'm taking this first week back as easy as I possibly can, while going to classes and doing any necessary reading and that kind of thing, just to sort of start getting my head back together and start kind of piecing my life back together. And I'm also just really hoping to think a bit more about Heart Story and think about what way it's going to go, because as you've probably noticed, I really haven't been making a lot of videos here on the channel, and part of that is because I've been so busy. So as I said, I've applied for the PhD. I know I said that a couple of months ago that I was thinking of applying. I have applied, the application is in, so now it's just a matter of time of waiting and seeing how that goes, and I'll be applying for funding and stuff like that. So that is done. And all going according to plan, that's what I'm hoping to be doing for the next couple of years. So this master's has now become not just sort of a weird kind of limbo for me. It's not just a kind of sort of a weird year and then I go back to, doing Heart Story and maybe being a librarian on the side again. This is going to be my life for the foreseeable future with any luck. So I think realizing that I was really going ahead with the PhD application and everything kind of really made me realize, okay, I actually have to think about this and think about how, and it's not just like Heart Story and making videos and finding time to talk to all of you guys and finding time to keep up with all of this stuff. It's also actually just finding time to have spiritual practice at all. And I think if I was devoting more time to my spirituality, I would organically be making more videos. You know what I mean? I would just have things to mind that I'm like, oh, I want to write that, or I want to make that video. And then when I found that half an hour, it'd be a lot easier to kind of think, right, well, I'll make that video now. I've been in a situation for the last couple of weeks and I've just realized this, and I think I've written a newsletter about this, which I'm going to send out today, hopefully. Yes, I know I haven't made a newsletter in quite a while either. But yeah, I realized that it's not just that I've had a lack of time, it's also that I just don't really know what I want to be saying anymore with Heart Story. And I feel a little bit like I've kind of outgrown Heart Story as a website, as a concept. And I'm not saying that it's going anywhere, I'm not saying that I'm getting rid of it or anything like that. I might keep the name indefinitely. I'm not making any hasty decisions, but I think I need to do some really serious rethinking about what the feel of the whole thing is and what the thrust of my content is and stuff like that, because everything has changed for me so much, and I've changed so much, and my spiritual focus has changed so much, that my old ways and the old kind of habits I had and the main topics that I would talk about and things like that, they've all kind of changed. A lot of it isn't relevant anymore. And maybe actually the first couple of videos that I'll make this year will kind of focus on that and focused on what's changed for me and what implications that has for my spiritual practice and stuff like that. I've just realised that that's a video that I could actually make in and of itself because it's too much to go into here. So yeah, so there's kind of been multiple reasons why everything's gone a bit quiet. So with regard to Heart Story, feeling like I've outgrown it, you know, when I chose that name, I felt really, really good about it. I felt very strongly about it. It made a lot of sense to me and it served me very well for a certain amount of time. But it just doesn't make sense to me right now where I'm at right now. Like every time I think of the name, it doesn't kind of, there's a bit of a dissonance or something. If that makes sense. And maybe this is just something that I need to work through myself, but it's something like the idea in my head of what Heart Story was going to be was so huge, and then actually creating it and putting it forth into the world, it was a little bit disappointing or wasn't quite what I wanted it to be. And maybe that's what's kind of soured it for me a little bit over the time while I was working under the rubric of Heart Story, and now that I've had a bit of space from it, that I feel a little bit like that wasn't quite what I was trying to achieve. Or maybe it's just quite a natural kind of creative impulse. Like usually when you're working on a creative project, once the creative project has kind of run its course, you change tack and you move on. And the thing about having you know, a brand is that usually you don't want to go changing that brand around a whole lot because people get confused. So in some ways I'm starting to feel a little bit stuck with Heart Story, and that's not a way I want to feel either. So I haven't decided what I'm going to do that. I have purchased a new domain name, which is anyaorga.com. And so for the moment I have that redirecting to Heart Story. So if you type in anyaorga.com, it'll just redirect to heartstory.org. Just because I wanted to snatch it up, and I'm thinking of switching to anyaorga.com as my, you know, primary website. I need to think about that. So I don't know, if anyone has any opinions on that, do let me know. But I'm just starting to feel like Heart Story was something quite specific. It was quite a specific vision that I had. And in a similar way to what I did with the spinning of the wheel, way back when, some of you might have been along the journey with me this long, I'm not sure, but way back when I had a blog called The Spinning of the Wheel, and it turned, when I purchased the Heart Story domain and created a new website, initially I had a blog. The blog was called The Spinning of the Wheel and the rest of the website was Heart Story. And then eventually I made the switch just to everything being Heart Story because the spinning of the wheel didn't resonate anymore, and I just felt like everything should all be together in one big kind of thing. The spinning of the wheel was kind of more about spiritual practice, and then Heart Story was more kind of self-development, I suppose. And now I'm just feeling a bit like maybe it's just that the self-development aspect for me has become less important, and it feels like when I start really getting back into sharing content on spirituality and on religious practice, that the self-development part isn't going to be where I'm at. It's not going to be my focus. And I think the reason for that is because I've been feeling less of a need to have the two things intertwined. And I have a feeling that, and I know I've talked about this before, but I think that they're going to diverge for me a little bit, and that's just going to be less of a focus. And that actually taking on the name Heart Story and going with that as a creative choice was something that was in some way limiting to me, and that I was trying to be very broad and all-encompassing, but in doing that I was actually kind of forcing myself to go down a very particular kind of route with a very particular kind of feeling to the whole project, to the whole website, to all the content. That it was under this kind of very personal development kind of rubric, and I'm not sure anymore that that's what I want. So this is why I'm considering just going with Anya Orga, because while Anya Orga is a pseudonym, I don't think it's one that's ever going to go anywhere. I've been using it for a really long time. I've been using it for probably about 5 years now. And because it's just a pseudonym, because it's a name, I don't feel like it's something I'm ever going to outgrow. And actually having that as a kind of an umbrella under which I can have projects that come and go like Heart Story might work better. So, you know, I could even bring back in Spinning of the Wheel, and I could have Heart Story under that. You know, there's various things I could do within that. So that's what I'm thinking of right now. So if anyone has any thoughts or comments, and I just thought I'd flag that now, so that if I do suddenly say, hey, I'm getting rid of Heart Story, I'm switching, that you won't all kind of be completely shocked. But it is all just part of the transformation that I'm undergoing. I completely underestimated how much moving here would change me. I hoped it would change me. I hoped that I would be able to become this sort of, I don't know, imaginary person that I wanted to be through being here. But the way that I thought I would achieve that was through being the old version of me, slightly improved. And actually what's happened is I am much happier here. I maybe I'd say my life is relatively well balanced. It's well balanced in different ways than it was previously. I definitely want to rebalance it a little bit this year, 2016. And actually, if any of you, probably most of you, have seen Kellyanne Maddox's video on your year tarot card, my year tarot card is Temperance, which is just so perfect. It's so perfect. Temperance is exactly right for me this year, because if I am going to be starting a PhD in September, this lifestyle is going to be a continuous thing for the foreseeable future, and I need to figure out how I can balance everything in that life without leaving anything important to one side, which is what has happened so far, because it's just been academia, friends, and that has been pretty much my life. A little bit of meditation thrown in there, and that's it. And I definitely want to balance that out a little bit more. Yeah, basically I've found that while I have maybe achieved, I feel like it's not that I've become the person I was hoping to become over here. I'm feeling the way that I was hoping to feel in a lot of ways. I'm much happier to the extent that I was hoping, but it hasn't been, like I say, it hasn't been through just kind of old me plus. It's been through complete metamorphosis. It's been through complete dissolution of all of my old habits and just my old life completely, and just a complete rebuilding of an entire new life, an entire new way of being, entire new lifestyle, a new way of socializing, a new way, just all my priorities and my values. Just I feel like they've all just, well, values, that might be going a bit far, but my priorities in my day-to-day life have completely changed, and everything is just completely out the window. Everything's new. And I just really feel like I need to actually find the time, which will be tricky, to reassess where I'm at and what this means for my spiritual practice, and what a spiritual practice is now, and what I need of it, I suppose, and whether that's right, whether my spiritual practice should be based on need, on what I need. I feel like that's maybe always been my focus before, because I returned to spirituality because I felt like I was in some way dissatisfied or unhappy, and spiritual expression was a part of what was missing in my life. The shape of my spiritual practice was always based on this concept of need. What do I need in order to be a happier version of myself? What do I need in order to feel fulfilled and content and spiritually connected, etc., etc., etc.? And obviously, because it's such a personal thing, your spiritual practice, because it's a personal choice, particularly nowadays, it's absolutely a choice to be religious, especially when you're practicing yourself at home and you're a solitary practitioner, and it's completely up to you to even take this on, to even bother. So obviously, to an extent, it's always going to be about need. It's going to be what you feel that you want to do. But maybe, want maybe is a more helpful kind of way to think about it. What you want to do, what you're driven to do, what your impulse is, rather than feeling like I'm chasing something, like chasing a certain feeling, that I'm needing to bring something into my life. Now I feel like I want to approach it as, can my spiritual practice just be an expression of myself, of my creativity, of who I am as a human being on this planet, in this life? And that, maybe because the need isn't there as much, because I'm so much more fulfilled in my daily life, because I'm being fulfilled through being in academia, I don't have that kind of need. It's been harder to make the time, but I absolutely want to. So I need to think about how that's going to work. I don't know if that made any sense to you or not, but that has made it challenging. That has made it challenging to actually find the time, make the time to really do that. And I think my spiritual practice is probably going to change more now than it ever has before. It's always gone through different metamorphoses, but I just feel like my whole approach, even if the actual practices don't change that much, and like it's not like they've been hugely extravagant in the last couple of years, and you know, it might be the same practices, the same prayers, the same whatever, the same rigmarole. My altar might actually end up looking similar enough, but maybe my whole approach is what needs to change, and what it is that calls me to sit at the altar, what it is that calls me to sacred space. Might be a different kind of feeling. I might need to approach it with a different feeling and have different kind of priorities and different reasons for deciding that I should do that. Like for like meditation and that kind of thing, rather than thinking, well, I need to meditate in order to be happy, because I know if I don't meditate for a few days that I will start to get irritable and, you know, uncentered and stuff like that. Nowadays I don't notice it as much when I don't meditate, because my general mood is a lot more stable. So I need to maybe find a different motivation to sit down at the altar, and rather than need, maybe it should be about giving back. That I feel like doing meditation is an offering, you know, an offering of my time and of my energy back to source. So yeah, I'm not sure if that's kind of covered everything. I need to think a bit more about what kind of content I'm going to be putting out there, and I think that'll probably just evolve organically as I spend more time thinking about spirituality in general and kind of take you guys along with me. But I also want to think about the newsletter a little bit. If any of you have, because some of you probably are subscribed to the newsletter, I'm pretty convinced that my newsletter subscribers are basically the core bunch of you who actually watch all of my videos, because I have like a similar amount of people watch every video as the amount of people who are subscribed to my newsletter, if you see what I mean. So I'm pretty sure there's quite a big overlap in that group of people. So I'm sure that, you know, a lot of you who, especially those of you who actually read all my newsletters, you're probably watching this. So if you have any ideas on what you actually want to see in that newsletter, do let me know. I mean, I'm probably going to make the decision myself based on what I feel like I want to do, but ideas would be wonderful, because, you know, one of you might say something and it might really resonate with me. I might kind of think, yeah, you know, that's what I want to do with this, because I'm writing much less, because I'm creating much less content, I feel more of a need to kind of separate what I'm doing with the newsletter from, say, what I might do in the blog. I mean, I haven't written a blog post, I think, since I moved here, but you know, it's in the plan, it might happen. So I feel a little bit like, I want to do something a little bit different with the newsletter, so that when I sit down to write content, it'll become really clear to me, am I writing for the blog or am I writing for the newsletter, if you see what I mean, like what kind of ideas I have that I might want to channel towards the newsletter as opposed to the blog. So bear in mind that I'm willing to be a little bit more personal in the newsletter, because it's going out to fewer people, and I know that any of you who are subscribed to it and remain subscribed to it are probably quite interested in what it is I have to share on that. So, you know, bear that in mind. I mean, that tends to be how I go with it anyway, that I get a little bit more personal in the newsletter. But yeah, if you have any ideas or thoughts or anything, do let me know. And apart from that, I think that's pretty much covered everything. I will hopefully make another video. I think I will talk about that whole thing of personal development and that concept of needing spirituality, and how I feel like my spirituality is changing or is going to change and stuff like that. And I'm also going to be completely reshaping my altar soon, I hope. And I might kind of walk you through that as well. But yeah, if you guys have any questions or anything, let me know. I will hopefully have replied to, or at least read, all of your comments, YouTube comments, before I post this video. It all got out of hand. My life got out of hand there for a while, like it really, really did. Yeah, I think I've covered everything, so I'll leave it there. And I will hopefully be talking to you again soon. You might have seen, I probably will have posted first the YouTube pagan challenge, video challenge, whatever it's called. I made the first week of that. Maybe I'll actually make all of those videos, I probably won't, but yeah, check that out. I'm going to try and do that challenge and answer at least some of those questions during the year as well, because I rambled on about it today, but I might actually try and keep it really short. I might even try and keep it under 5, maybe under 7 minutes when I make those videos, because yeah, just to have something a bit shorter, a bit more short and snappy up here, as well as these kind of more long rambling ones, because I do ramble. Okay, I'll leave it there. Talk to you soon, guys, and I really hope you're all well. A very, very happy 2016 to you, I hope. that you're all entering into it with as much hope and enthusiasm as I am. I'm very excited for this year. I think it's going to be a good one.